and thank you for the very warm introduction from Rob. I think he made me sound a lot cooler than I really am. But two really quick things before we get started. First of all, a really silly picture of me, because who doesn't love a silly picture of a dorky email marketer? But also a URL that you should write down right away. I think I even tweeted it a few minutes ago, because scheduling tweets is silly at conferences. But the URL is litmus.com/lp/mozcon. Everything I'm going to talk about today is already up there, along with a lot of links to how-tos and resources, because as Rob said, we're going to get really jam-packed and move quickly here. So we all know that email's got talent, right? As marketers and consumers along, we both know that email's got a lot of things going for it, but not always for the right reasons. One of my favorite emails that I get every year is this birth-anniversary email from my husband's family. If you've ever wondered what a birth-anniversary is, it's your birthday and your anniversary combined. Yes, I got married on my birthday, and if you're wondering, it's December 18th, in case you want to send me something really awesome. But I look forward to this email every year. What happens is my husband's family takes all the things you've done that year, and they write a poem for you about your previous year and how you're turning another year older. So as you approach like the above 30 bracket, it makes turning another year older a little bit less painful. But needless to say, I look forward to this email. It's one of the very few I get in my inbox that I love every year. But there's also a lot of emails that frankly make us grumpy, right? It also has a talent for that, let's be honest. The inbox full of deals and subject lines that you're just kind of sick of getting, that makes me definitely grumpy. Or like my friend Rachel pointed out, she said, J. Crew, if you're going to send me an email with some puppies in the subject line, then you better deliver on some damn puppies. In case you haven't noticed, I like cats. But this cat isn't cool with puppies either. She's like, yeah, I don't want any puppies. It also has a talent for being kind of confusing or maybe even misleading sometimes. When you stay at a hotel and they send you an email and they say, hey, will you take this survey? But then it comes from do not reply. It's kind of a mixed message there, right? Like, please take this survey, but God, do not reply. So that's kind of just a jerk thing to do, right? You're like, don't do that. It also has a talent for exposing both our technological and our human weaknesses. I'm sure everyone in this room has had the great displeasure of sending an apology email at least once in their career. I know I have. In this case, the email was apologizing for an email that went out earlier the same week, but it came from Blaine, whose email was Trish, and then when you actually looked in my inbox, I never got the email they were apologizing for sending. So in that case, email can just be downright embarrassing, and you're just like, oh, I wish no one had saw that. Gosh, guys, right? Like, can I just go actually back in here? No, okay. So we're really just not feeling the love. It can be a really tricky thing, and for someone that really, really loves email, which you'll see here in the next 27 minutes, it just makes me, we can do a better job, guys. We really, really can. And every once in a while, there's an email that's really talented, and it makes me surprised and delighted and just so grateful that it came into my inbox. Like when Songkick sends me an email that says, hey, one of your favorite bands is coming to the House of Blues in Boston, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I love getting these kinds of emails. So as marketers and consumers, we know that email is awesome, but sometimes we forget. It's preferred, it's measurable, it's direct, and it's personal. 60% of people said they would rather receive an email than interact with your brand on your website or even over social media. We can measure opens, clicks, conversions. We can all tie that back to our customers and see what they're doing. It's awesome. It's direct. It's an opportunity to get right in someone's inbox. It's such a personal place, right? But we also have mounds and mounds of data that we can use to make email really personalized. But I think sometimes we forget that personal nature of email. Every time we press send and our email goes to 10,000 or maybe even 10 million people, sometimes we forget that emails go to real people with real lives, with real desires, with real interests, and that they're human beings, and that real humans want to connect with other real people. And so those people, when they want to connect with you, your brand can be human too. So you have to ask yourself, how can my brand take advantage of the human nature and create customer-centric campaigns that people actually want to receive and interact with? The secret is in this little Venn diagram that we created. It's when you magically unite the needs of your subscribers with the needs of your business. That's when magic happens, right? And it's a little bit harder than it looks. Here's a couple of my favorite emails. This one from Karma. Does anyone have a Karma Wi-Fi hotspot? They're like the coolest things ever. I swear I don't work for Karma, I work for Litmus. But I had just gotten my Karma, and I'd been using it for a few hours. I was actually working on a park bench outside. And they sent me this email that said, hey, your battery's dying. You might want to charge it soon. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's genius. Put my marketer hat on for a second, and I thought, Karma wants me to charge a device because the more I charge it, the more I use it, the more I use it, the more data I need to buy from them, which benefits their business. But also, I'm finding the thing really useful. So my needs as a consumer, I don't want the dang thing to die, and their needs of a business united in a really cool email with a nifty animated GIF. That makes me happy. Or this email, it sounds really simple enough. It just looks at the weather every day, and it says, here's what you should wear. But the real brilliance is in that little red graph there on the right side. When I signed up for the email, it asked me, well, when do you like to exercise outdoors? I said that I like to exercise outdoors when it's probably more than 30 degrees, but really no higher than 75. I'm kind of a hot and sweaty person in general. I don't want to be outside any longer than that. So it told me, here's the times of the day when the weather is going to meet your temperature thresholds, and you should exercise outdoors. If that's not like personal and relevant and tailored just for me, like I don't really know what is. My colleague Chad creates a framework he calls the hierarchy of subscriber needs. And it goes from the foundational elements of what makes an email just functional, all the way up to what makes an email remarkable, and everything in the middle. So at the bottom, you have a respectful email. That's, do I even have permission to send it? Am I meeting my subscribers' expectations? Then the email has to be functional. Do the links and the images work? Or when I click a link, does it take me to a 404 page? Then there's valuable. Is this email personal? Is it relevant? Am I actually getting something out of it as a user and not just sort of the company that's sending it, right? Am I just being treated like a cash machine? No, thank you. And then there's remarkable. Am I surprised? Am I delighted? Am I willing to share this email with my friends and family? Am I going to post it on Twitter? Am I going to talk about it, right? That's like the holy grail of email. So first I want to talk about functional and respectful emails and how we get there first. You've got to get out of the blast mentality, right? If I hear people in this room, and there's a lot of you, use the word blast over the next couple days, I will personally slap you on the wrist very kindly. That's because email is not a blast. A blast is a tank, right? It's a weapon of mass destruction. It's violent, right? You don't say you're going to blast your friends when you send them an invitation to your open house, right? So start saying communication, start saying email, start saying message. That's what an email really is. It's definitely not a blast. Let's take a walk in our user's inbox, too, or a mile in our user's shoes. I know it sounds cliche, so bear with me for just a second. Don't feel like I'm taking you on this, dragging you on this thing that you don't really want to do. Which, by the way, if you've ever tried to put your cat on a leash, that's exactly what happens. They either like collapse or they're like, I can't do this. So earlier, Kara talked about opt-in, right? She really reinforced the fact that you can't email people unless they've asked to hear from you. So that foundational element about just respecting your audience and having permission to send is so, so critical. I think we've all received an email that we don't really want in our inbox. And so spam is defined first and foremost by the user. Is this an email that they want to receive? And if they don't, to them it's spam. But you also have to realize that spam is different in different parts of the world. And the US has some of the worst or the most lenient spam laws anywhere else that I've ever seen. If you're sending email from the US to people in other countries, you actually have to obey the laws where you're sending the email to, not where you're sending it from. So if you have customers based in, say, Germany that has some of the strictest spam laws, you should be following the spam laws in Germany. And the US is the only place in the world that doesn't require permission or consent to email someone, but everywhere else in the world does. So just keep that in mind. So you can't act like a spammer, right? Permission is opt-in, it's not purchased. Don't buy lists. That's the absolute bare minimum of what you should be able to do to send email and meeting that subscriber hierarchy of needs. So after that, I want to talk about the inbox experience. This is where we're really going to start walking that mile. I break this up into two parts. The first part is the inbox. That's the from name, the subject line, and this thing called preview text. The second part is the email body when people finally open and click. But I want to spend a few minutes and really walk through the inbox in detail because I think it's one of the most ignored and under-optimized parts of email. If you think about it for a second, we spend so much time crafting the body of our email. We write headlines, we create images, and then we chuck it into our little email tool, and we're like, hey guys, what should the subject line be? Have you ever done that? I know I have, and I'm up here giving the email talk. So you want to reverse that, right? If you think like if you have a really great open rate, say 30, 40%, which is a pretty good open rate, then 100% of people are seeing the inbox, but only 30% of people are seeing the actual body of the email itself. So take the time, go through this process, and really put some effort into the inbox part, the from name, the subject line, and the preview text. So let's break it down. The from name, that's what people see first. Who's the email from? Is it from your company? Is it from a person at your company? Is it from a combination of both? You could put Justine Jordan at Litmus. I really like how Quora does this. They actually put a little bit of explainer information about what you can expect in the email, and they variate their from name so that it almost acts as a subject line in some ways. Really cool idea. And behind every from name is what we call a from address. So if a customer or a subscriber replies to your email, where does it go? You don't want to use no reply. Because what happens then is if you send your customer an order receipt and they have questions about their order and it goes to no reply, what does that say about how you care about their order? Not very good, right? Or if B2B, if I have a question about my new work-life plan at work, and again, it's going to go nowhere. I like how JetBlue does this. They actually put reply in there. And if I reply to that email, I can feel good that another human being is reading it and might actually respond to my inquiry. So make sure you're monitoring that inbox. You give people a place to send replies to, and you're not just saying, this is going to go in a black hole, and we don't care about you or your email, because that's kind of what that's saying. So subject line optimization. Everyone wants to know, how do you send the perfect subject line? And to be frank, there's no such thing. Even though Litmus wrote a blog post about it, I think it's on the resource page, I'll be the first to admit there's no such thing as a secret formula for a subject line. And as marketers, we tend to be really, really focused on the open rate. But frankly, we're kind of desperate, right? We end up writing subject lines that say, like, don't delete, please open this email. It's crazy. Because opens are kind of a vanity metric. They're flawed. First of all, they require an image to be turned on in order to even rate and open at all. If you're B2B and you're sending a lot of plain text emails, you're not going to get any sort of open rate at all because there's no images in that email. Instead, you should be looking at what open rates actually result in clicks and conversions. So follow the subject line further down the funnel and see what's happening after the open, because that's really what's most important. And when you ask people what they actually want out of subject lines, it's kind of interesting. They say they don't want things that are overly promotional or salesy. They also don't want spelling or grammar mistakes in their email. Surprise, surprise. That's a low bar to clear. But they want things that sound relevant and personal. Of course, they want to feel like the email is tailored for them because email is a personal medium, right? We want every email to be like the birth-anniversary email with a personalized poem from your family inside. That's awesome. So preview text optimization, that's the next thing. Are any of you familiar with this or using it? I can just barely see you if you raise your hands. All right, cool. If you're not, this is, again, one of the most underutilized pieces of email optimization that you can do. Instead of putting view images, you should do something that's kind of actionable or trackable. And the preview text acts as a second subject line. You get one chance in the subject line, but you get two whole lines in some instances after the subject line to put some more text in there. So some of my favorite bad and good examples. Email not displaying correctly, view inline. Let's get rid of that. Or having trouble displaying this email. I don't know about you, but as a marketer at my company, I don't want the word trouble right next to my brand name in the inbox. That's no good. Instead, I like this one from Wistia that says scrappy beginnings. We all started somewhere, videos and lessons learned. That's awesome. Or Sprout Social, they say webinar follow-up. They say here's some next steps that you can get the most out of your webinar experience. That's useful, valuable. Or Meetup, to Meetup organizers all around the world, thanks for all you do to create community. That kind of gets me right here in the feels. I like that too. So preview text can show up in the inbox, but not in the email itself. There's some code that you can put in your message to make sure that it just shows up in the inbox, but not in the email. You should test this. Use it and A/B test it. Because one time I saw someone that ran a test. They teased the last article in their newsletter, and it was a really long newsletter. And guess which one got most clicks? It was the preview text that teased that article in the bottom, and that article got a ton of clicks. So it works, guys. You should try it. So an optimized inbox in the end looks like this. It's got your from name, it's got your subject line, and it's got preview text at the bottom. And you're utilizing all three of those things, and you're making good of all of them. And one final word, don't be these guys, right? We live in a mobile world. Lots of emails come from iPhones and iPads. And to be clear, I didn't even get these emails. I'm not going to read them because they can be like super offensive, but you can read them and laugh, hopefully, or just cringe. But people noticed this stuff. They tweeted these. I found these on Twitter, guys. I searched for like bad subject line or like bad email fail or something, and these came up. So people noticed this stuff and they tweet about it. These didn't come to my inbox. All right, so we covered the first part of the subscriber experience, which is the inbox. Like I said, super important, gets totally ignored. What happens when someone finally does open your email and then they actually look at the body of it? Let's talk about that for a few minutes. We have to think about what makes an email contextually relevant when we get to this part. This is the real key of creating a customer-centric campaign. What do you know about your users so that you can create a better experience for them? We can look at technology, we can look at environment, and we can look at task. When we look at technology, that's simply what device are they using? Am I on a giant 27-inch iMac, or am I on like a teeny tiny like iPhone 4 SE? Because people still use those, I think. Environment, where and when am I? What am I trying to do? If I am at an ATM machine and I request an email receipt at that ATM machine, I am not sitting at my desktop computer. So if you send me an email when I am definitely not at my desktop, the email should look good on that mobile device because I'm not at my desktop. Or what am I trying to do? So my local gym, I want to swim at the pool. The pool's closed, but which pool? It doesn't actually say in the email. It just says the pool is closed. And I'm like, well, there's 3 gyms that I go to that have pools. Which one is closed? I don't know. Or I'd love to talk to any of you in the audience that have an Apple Watch about how you are receiving emails on it and if that experience is a positive one for you. Because as a marketer, if you're sending emails that don't have a plain text version, people on an Apple Watch aren't getting your email. There's no text version, there's no email on Apple Watch, which is kind of nuts. So we all know that mobile is exploding, right? It's grown 600% just in email alone in the last 5 or 6 years. That's nuts. It went from 8% to like 56%. But just because I'm on stage telling you that 56% of email opens are happening on mobile, you can't listen to me. I don't always know you or your audience. Litmus, my own company, B2B, a lot of people only open our emails while they're at work during the day. We have about 15% of our audience that opens on mobile, but big B2C consumer app companies, they have like 70% of their emails that open on mobile. So you have to pay attention and know what's good for your audience. If you have a ton of people opening on mobile, look at responsive design. A lot of cool things you can do. You can cut down your navigation. You can change emails from 2-column to 1. A lot of great things happening with responsive email. Also, technology, right? If you have those people that are on a Retina display, either on their phone or on a MacBook, I see lots of Apple logos glowing silently at me from the stage. Retina images are super important, and you can also put them in email. The way it works is you save the image out as 2 times the size you want to display it in your email, and then you resize it in your code. So for simplicity's sake, if I want to display the image at 100 pixels by 100 pixels in the email, I save it out as 200 by 200, and then I readjust it in the code itself. So it actually looks really nice and sharp, and your logo isn't all pixelated on the Retina display. Also, speaking of images, a lot of email programs out there block them automatically. Outlook is probably one of the biggest offenders of this. If you're sending a lot of images in your email and your main message is captured in the image, it's going to show up blank. You can optimize that by using alt text, by using colored backgrounds. You can also style your alt text so that it shows up as like a different font or a different color. Alt text is a good accessibility practice in general. So code snippet there. I also learned this simple accessibility hack just a couple weeks ago at our conference in London. It's so easy. If you have people reading your emails with a screen reader, and because email has to be table-based, it has this really horrible experience where it reads it, and it's like table 1, column 1, cell 1, and then it actually says what's in the column, which is really awful. If you just add role presentation to all the tables in your email, it skips over all those empty columns and kind of nonsense and just reads the text, which is such a better experience for people using a screen reader. Also, images as buttons, just don't do it, guys. Stop saving out your buttons as images because, again, if images are turned off in an email, no one can see your call to action. You want to use what's called a bulletproof button instead. And again, because email is all table-based, we're going to have a cell. The cell's going to have a background color. The cell's going to have just a regular old text link inside of it, so it kind of looks like a button, quacks like a button, must be a button, even though it's just a table cell with color and a link inside. but we call those bulletproof buttons in weird, nerdy email language. Also, channel your Sir inner Mix-a-Lot. So my rule of thumb for every button is to say I like big buttons and I cannot lie. This is all channeled through the context of that mobile user because we want a better experience for them. I don't need to tell you guys that you need to A/B test your CTAs. So you want to look at what creates a great CTA, right? You want to A/B test it. Think about things like a high commitment calls to action, friction, all that kind of stuff. I've seen tons and tons of tests where things like this happen. You say free trial or see plans or pricing, and you get like a 200% increase in signups. Again, it's not all just about the open rate. You have to follow it all down through to the end of the funnel and see what parts of your email are actually landing on that conversion. And speaking of mobile and CTAs, for the love of everything, please stop saying click here. If people are on a mobile device, they are not clicking unless they invented a new wireless mouse that I can attach to my iPhone. I'd like someone to invent that, please. But as far as I'm concerned, those don't really exist. And so we just, and don't say tap here either, right? Use a more firm, direct call to action rather than a weak passive one. And make everything bigger. I say 16 pixels is a good baseline for body copy, by 22 pixels for headlines. And the rule of thumb, which by the way, you can use your thumb. It's a great tool that we all have. You can smash it up against your computer screen. You can smash it up against your phone. You want all of your CTAs, as well as the white space between them, to have at least that much, which is about 44 by 44 pixels, according to Apple anyway. My thumb might be a little bit bigger. Your mileage may vary. But make sure you're using that rule of thumb, and that way you'll never forget it, because it's always on you, to see if all your CTAs and you have enough white space in your email. So basically, enlarge all the things, right? We like to talk about video in email, too. And the tricky thing with video in email is that video inside of an email doesn't really work. But it rolls off the tongue so nicely to say video in email. Really, what you can do is video with email, but video in email doesn't really work. What you want to do instead is you want to create a thumbnail of your video, put it in your email, and then when people click the thumbnail, it takes you to a landing page where then you view the video, but it doesn't play right in your email. It's not really well supported. Speaking of being human, you should A/B test this too, but typically it almost always works out that the human wins. We A/B tested a photo of or thumbnail of our engineer, Eddie, versus a photo of our very lovely product. But Eddie won hands down. People definitely prefer Eddie to our nice new shiny product. So it really reconfirms the fact that people want to connect with humans, especially at your brand, rather than just your brand. If video really isn't your thing, you can use animated GIFs. These are some of my favorite examples. You can entice, you can entertain, you can even educate with animated GIFs. So if you're B2B and you're thinking, oh man, I'm just not cool enough, I can't use an animated GIF, some of my favorite animated GIFs came from B2B companies that were using product demos as an animated GIF. You can actually put a product demo in your email just as a GIF. It works. That's super cool. But if you're going to use GIFs, keep in mind that the first frame, especially for a lot of Outlook users, should be the CTA. Because Outlook only shows the first frame of your animation. If you don't put everything in there, Outlook users are going to see this if there's nothing in that first frame, which is just blank. No good. All right, so we talked about the top part of the bottom part of the pyramid. Let's talk about the top. What else do we need to know, and how can it benefit us and them? So if you think about context, what else do we know about our users? Do we have behaviors, life cycle factors, things that we know that we can help contextualize their experience even more to move their emails into that remarkable and valuable area? Welcome emails, great example. If I signed up for Litmus as a service, I get an email about Litmus as a service. If I signed up for a welcome email just to sign up for their newsletter, I get kind of a best of. So it's contextualized based upon where they entered my marketing funnel, as a member of my service or as a reader of my blog. And then if I do follow-up emails to customers, I don't want to send them a trial for a product they're already paying for. It's not very thoughtful of me. So instead, I'm going to send them just some additional value-add content, but all the prospects are going to get the actual trial deal. You can also take information about what you know about the golden path for your customers. If you know that certain behaviors lead to better conversion metrics down the road, encourage those with email. Customer.io knew that people that authenticated the domain in their accounts actually had higher LTV longer down the road in the relationship. And so they took advantage of that and sent people a reminder email to authenticate their domain. At Litmus, if people abandon the sign-up process when signing up for software, we actually send them the B2B equivalent of a cart abandonment email, where we say, hey, it looks like you were signing up. Did you have some trouble? Is there anything we can help with? You can also use geolocation, trigger emails based upon someone's city. If you're doing an event, send people an email related to where they live and what's going on around them. One of my favorite examples of this life cycle approach is actually from Airbnb. I took a trip to Amsterdam with my husband recently, and the first room that we asked for wasn't available. So we got this email from Airbnb that said, hey, your first room wasn't available, but here's some alternatives that look kind of similar that you might want to keep in mind. Super awesome, really valuable, awesome. Then I booked that, I got a nice receipt. Then about a week before, they said, hey, it's time to pack your bags. Here's some great tips and tricks that you should know about your trip to Amsterdam. Super helpful. And then when I was done, they said, how did you feel about your experience? Will you rate it for us? Even when I'm not traveling with Airbnb, they send me really relevant emails that are based upon my past interactions with them to help me get re-engaged. So this one says, like, you booked a trip this time last year. Do you want to explore some additional trips? Or they know I live in Boston, and so they say, like, here's some places that are nearby that you can get just on a weekend trip. Really awesome. Now, to get that very, very top level of the pyramid, to go from just having a valuable email to a truly remarkable email, we can start to implement some neat little technical tips and tricks or strategies that go beyond just sending valuable, respectful, functional content. CSS Animation is one of my favorite little surprise and delight mechanisms. You can put little clouds animating about the current weather. Image personalization, seeing your own face in an email. There's nothing more personal than that, which is totally awesome. That was before I cut all my hair off. I promise that's me. Interactivity. We sent an email releasing our new Builder product and actually had an interactive tour of the product in the email. Now, this is crazy. It doesn't work everywhere. It requires a lot of hacks, a lot of technical know-how. But it's one of those things where if you're able to pull it off and you have the right audience, it can really blow their minds. We had people talking about this on Twitter for days. Or gamification. It's possible with email. Rather than just telling everyone the name of the city of the last stop on our conference tour, we asked people to tweet and share the email in order to reveal the third city in the email itself. So we said, here's how to reveal the surprise city. We included a share tracker that showed how many people had shared the email on Twitter and Facebook and had forwarded the email. And then their tweets actually showed up live in the email itself, too. Pretty cool. We had, I think, something like 1,500 tweets in 24 hours or something about this. It was just nuts, at least for our business. It was a big deal. So in closing, if you can combine that subscriber experience with the hierarchy of subscriber needs and really tailor your emails to the needs of both of those things, uniting your needs with the customer's needs, you can unlock the hidden talents of email. Because good emails make people open, and good emails make people click, but great emails make people think, feel, act, share, and deliver really, really awesome experiences. So you can make email better. Thanks, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Justine. I think you conveniently managed to use up all your time there, didn't you?
I did.
Do we have time for a question?
Up to you.
Go on. Someone asked, and I don't know who it was, so I'm not going to out you. They said, my company's fallen into the trap of offering giveaways to increase open rates. It's not really working anymore. They want to transition back to more relevant subject lines, more relevant content. Any suggestions or recommendations for me?
I would, again, follow the funnel. If you're doing a lot of giveaways or a lot of maybe sub-optical marketing techniques and your management is really buying into that because the open rates are higher or it's like building the list, take that follow the funnel approach. I can almost guarantee you that the people that are engaging with those or signing up as a result of those, you're going to have higher unsubscribe rates and you're going to have higher complaint rates, which a lot of people don't realize can affect your deliverability down the road. So email platforms like Gmail are actually looking at that type of engagement and interactivity, and if you have a lot of people marking as spam or complaining, you can be forbidden from delivering email in the future.
Okay. We had a few different technical questions, like How do I make my buttons bigger, and how do I do anything for Outlook? I'm not going to get you to rattle off every technical answer right now. For people trying to figure this stuff out, looking for resources, what do you recommend? Where would you point people to answer all of this?
I'm biased. Litmus, the company I work for, I think has great resources for this. Our conference is actually in San Francisco later this week. I'm headed down there after this. We have a great blog. We have a great community. There's tons and tons of technical resources on both the blog and the community. Other good resources, Campaign Monitor. If you go to that landing page, thelitmus.com/lp/mozcon, I have a ton of stuff on there, a lot to third parties. MailChimp has a good technical online resource, and there's a bunch of people that are on Twitter that you should follow too. If you tweet at me, I will definitely get you some specific names though.
Fantastic.